Session 4 on effective communication. Reflection and clarification are both common techniques used in verbal communication to ensure that what you have heard and understood is what you intended. Reflecting is the process of feeding back to another person your understanding of what has been said. Although reflecting is a specialized skill used in counseling, it can also be applied to a wide range of communication contexts and is a useful skill to learn. Reflecting often involves paraphrasing the message communicated to you by the speaker in your own words, capturing the essence of the facts and feelings expressed, communicating your understanding back to the speaker. It is a useful skill because of the following points. You can check that you have understood the message clearly. The speaker gets feedback as to how the message is received. It shows interest in and respect for what the other person has to say. And you are demonstrating that you are considering the other person's viewpoint. It's real good in interpersonal communication, especially like between couples, or maybe if there's some type of conflict, because it requires one person to be quiet, let the other person speak while you listen, and then you put it in your own words and you reflect or you recite what you think they said, which you're going to be right. And so it really resolves a lot of conflict because they know you're hearing them and you're listening. And a lot of communication problems come from the fact people feel like they're not being listened to, or maybe they're being listened to but they're not heard. How many of you know there is a difference? Yeah. So, summarizing. A summary is an overview of the main points or issues raised. Summarizing can also serve the same purpose as reflecting. However, summarizing allows both parties to view and agree concerning the communication exchanged between them up to that point in time. When used effectively, summaries may also serve as a guide to the next step forward. You'll see summaries used a lot of times in speaking to audiences. You sum up what you've just covered. You'll see it used in board meetings, conferences where people are sitting around discussing topics and ideas. And at the conclusion, let's say it's 2 minutes till the end of the meeting time, whoever's chairing the meeting might say, okay, now we're going to summarize what we talked about today. And they'll usually have been taking notes, and they'll just go over and cover the highlights or the main points, which says to the group, or if it's just one person, it says to everyone, we heard what you said. We have actually documented, at least to a basic degree, what we discussed today. And so therefore, as we summarize it, we are saying in this summary, this is what we all heard, this is what we're all going to think about or work on or achieve or something, depending on how the discussion was, over until the next time we meet or something like that. So summarizing is important because it lets people know they're heard. For example, I'll give you an example. Back when we used to do the old-fashioned way of having a prayer meeting where everybody raises their hands and they'll tell you, pray for Uncle so-and-so, this happened, pray for this and this happened. And then, the congregation would go to pray. People would say, we can't remember there were so many prayer requests, we can't remember them. Well, as a pastor, what I would always do is stand in the pulpit and I would jot down notes. See? And then after everybody, it might take 5 or 10 minutes for everybody to tell their prayer requests. And then I would summarize for everybody, okay, Uncle John's going to have heart surgery. Billy Bob, broke a tooth. You know what I'm saying? In other words, like that. And then I had someone step in one time to fill the position because I don't remember why. And one of the older ladies said, we like it better when you do it. And I said, I don't understand why. This person's great at leading prayer. They're great at encouraging people. She said, because you help us remember what we talked about and what the needs were. All I did was write down a list every time and read it back to them one more time. But it says to people, you heard what I said. I think she was really saying, because she always had a prayer request, I think she was really saying was, she likes to know that everybody heard her prayer request and we're really going to pray for it. But that's what part of what summarization says to the group is that, yes, we heard you, we didn't just hear you, but hear us repeat what you said. Okay? And it's helpful for people. Closing communication. The way a communication is closed or ended will at least in part determine the way a conversation is remembered. A range of subtle or sometimes not so subtle signals are used to end an interaction. For example, some people may avoid eye contact, stand up, turn their body away, or use behaviors such as looking at a watch or closing notepads or books. All of these nonverbal actions indicate to the other person that they wish to end the communication. One of the things they teach you in counseling, or something that some of you may want to know, is you're sitting in a counseling session and typically it's not good to counsel from behind a desk because the desk always puts a barrier between you and the counselee. So you would have a section in your church or in your counseling office like this. And typically you don't even want an angle. You want to put couch facing couch or chair facing chair so that you can look into the eyes of them, they can look into your eye, and they feel a comfortable sense of interest. And so you would do it that way. But one of the most important things about counseling is that you don't try to go too long. Preachers who haven't been trained in counseling, we are notorious for having marathon counseling sessions. 6 hours later, we're still casting out demons. You know what I mean? He ain't out yet. Well, people that have been trained in counseling know that some things come out by prayer and fasting. You need to take a break and go pray and fast, But generally, they would say a counseling session should never go over 50 minutes because neither the counselee nor the counselor is going to be able to really keep focused any longer than that, be able to really, really give their best in the situation. The longer you go, the tireder you get. Your brain gets tired whether you realize it in your body or not. And so you're not as quick to have response. You're not as quick to be able to communicate between you. And that goes for the counselee and the counselor. So even though sometimes you feel like we're just getting to the point of breakthrough, and here it is, it's been 50 minutes, just trust the Lord. Just say, okay, we're going to pray right now and pick this up next time. And I know we're at a really good point, so let's get ready. Next time's going to be really good. And normally typically it's suggested you put a week between counseling sessions. And if you are not a professional counselor, you typically don't want to take anybody beyond 3 to 5 sessions. If it goes beyond 3 to 5 sessions, you're not qualified to help them anyway. Okay? They need to see a professional trained counselor and get some real help because you're dealing with a mental health issue. You're dealing with, and you may be able to deal with in deliverance with casting out demons or something, but you're probably dealing with a demonic spirit of some nature in that situation. But there's definitely something really deep that requires more than just the typical. They don't train pastors to be counselors, and so they tell you to counsel all the time, but they don't teach you how. So you just need to know that it's not a shame to say, hey, we've been going for 4 times or 5 times, and I think it's time for me to refer you to a Christian counselor. That's not a shame. That shows you're smart enough to know this person has got some really deep problems. We're not getting to the root of these issues, and we need somebody who can take them to the next level. All right? Most situations you can handle perfectly, and you're going to be successful and effective. So, but what you can do when you're sitting here face-to-face in counseling, when the time comes, stand up. You just stand up. Like I'm in a room counseling somebody, and we're sitting here talking, and the individual's still talking. I just stand up and let them keep talking. But subconsciously, they know that I'm saying, "Bah, time up," you see. If they don't respond immediately, which 9 out of 10 times, and when you stand up, they will stand up. They may couldn't finish their sentence or their paragraph. They'll stand up. If they don't stand up, then you walk towards the door. Okay? Don't say anything. Just walk towards the door. If they don't get up and head towards the door, you open the door. Okay? Open the door. If they don't respond to that, you say, "Listen, we're out of time. I've got another appointment, or I've got something." Always have something else to do. I've got something else I need to do. If it ain't nothing but go pray about the fact that, dear God, I'm glad they're gone. Have something else to do. And I've got something else to do. I have really enjoyed it. We have really accomplished some good things today. I'm looking forward to our next meeting. And then, like that. Because you're going to counsel people who basically, they come to a counseling session and you're scared they want to move in with you. It's almost like a leech. They latch on to you and you just almost can't get rid of them. And you're going to have to do that. And they will eventually learn that when they come to you, you're giving them a certain amount of time. And you may have somebody who will say, well, you just always stop the session when we're just getting going. And you just tell them, say, no, actually, at 50 minutes, we have accomplished the most that we can accomplish. And now it's time for us to take a break, pray about, digest everything we've discussed, and move into our next session after we've been able to process this. And just tell them that. We're not teaching on counseling today, but since I went through that little scenario, I always would try to give homework to someone I counsel. So I would, usually I prepare it before they get there, but I take notes while we're talking. And I would typically take what I prepared and add some notes to it, and I'll give them homework on a piece of paper. If you just tell them to do something, they ain't going to do it. But if you tell them, and you hand them a piece of paper, and it says, I want you to read this book of the Bible, and I want you to answer 2 or 3 questions and think about it and pray about it. I want you to begin to treat your spouse this way and make it intentionally do this every morning when you get up, things like that. And you give it to them and it's written on a piece of paper. They almost feel like you're the doctor giving them a prescription. But if you just tell them to do it, they'll come back next week. Did you do what I told you? What was that? They can't remember it till they get through the door threshold. Write it down. And you will be excited to see the progress, people who are sincerely wanting help, who will cover a lot of ground and make a lot of progress, even sometimes in 1 week, just by what I call the discipleship aspect of counseling. Okay? Discipleship means teaching them to do what you have learned to do in the Lord. And so that's basically what you're doing. You're just saying, okay, here's some things I think will help you in your life or in your marital problems or in your situation. Now, you do these. This way, they come back the next week and you say, how did it go this week when you were working on your assignment? And I don't normally do this, but occasionally if I'm having someone who is really wanting to get help, but for whatever reason, I see that they've got a lazy streak in them or something, but I think they really do want help. Sometimes I'll say, listen, if you come back next week and you hadn't done your homework, we're not going to have a counseling session. I'm going to leave you in here with your notes and let you catch up on your homework, and then that'll be it for the day. That's what I tell them sometimes. They've got to know you are the teacher and they are the disciple in a counseling session. You don't want people who come into a counseling session who are there to try to counsel you. And that you will have people do that, especially if you're a pastor or a Christian in authority. There are some people who think it is their job, an assignment from God Almighty, to correct pastors and leaders. And they will make a counseling session with you and come in and tell you everything is wrong with your church. Yada, 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 yada. And you preach this way, and you do this. And I'll usually stand up 10 minutes in, and I'll say, I'm sorry, but I thought you came in here for counseling. But it seems to me like you just have some issues and some problems with the church. Let's do this. Why don't we have a quick word of prayer and ask the Lord to be the Lord of the church, and He can resolve the problems, and you and me can go on and do what we need to do today. I'll just tell them like that. I'm not going to sit there and argue with them. No, that's my brother. That's my brother. He leaves them out with their tail tucked. They go out like this. But no, that's, in the early days, I'd argue with them. Well, you're wrong, and everything. Tell them why they're wrong. But as I begin to get older, I realize people who have got something crossways, they're angry or they're, you know what I'm saying. No matter what you say, they're not going to be satisfied. And some of them actually want you to basically become their puppet. They think they got some word from God, and you ought to start having church the way they dictate it to you. And that ain't happening. So, So basically, my opinion is politely but professionally shut them down, pray for them, and tell them good night.
Dr. Martin, especially in today's world, how do you handle especially with somebody angry at each other and carrying a weapon? Do you ask them when they come in?
If they have a weapon?
If you have a weapon?
You know what? I've never asked anybody that. Really? I have gone into counseling sessions. It is. It is. But I have gone into homes where somebody had a weapon on the spouse. Hold him at gunpoint. And pointed at me when I come in. I have had that happen, but I've never had, and I don't know if I've had anybody come in because they didn't pull anything out. But I've never thought about that. We do live in a different day and time.
Yeah. What would you do when they come in? Like, hey guys, I've heard that, I know y'all are angry. Nobody got a weapon.
Yeah, as you mention it now, I hadn't thought about it, but I need to rethink that. Yeah. You know, but you're going to find that when it comes to most relational problems, it's going to be marriage or two church folks fighting each other usually, and when there's anger involved. I mean, and most of the time, I don't even try to spend a lot of time counseling people if they are actively angry. I'll say, well, I'll just tell them, I say, it's obvious to me that one of you or both of you are still so angry you're not ready for counseling. And I'll tell them, I'll say, first thing you need to do is you need to go and pray and ask God to help you process what all has been happening. And when there is a peaceable attitude, and when you feel like you can sit and listen and not want to strike out, let's set a time and get back together. And I've had that work with people before. And you also will find that some of them will never call you back because now they're mad at you, you know. Because sometimes people who get angry at another person, they really are not interested in help. They honestly believe they're right, and they think you're going to get on their side. And the two of you are going to just destroy and annihilate this person. And when they come in and find out that even if they are 100% right, you're not going to condone their actions and their anger. You're going to say to them, hey, listen, we'll talk about who's right or wrong once you calm down, you know. So you just have to kind of do that way. But I also have found, and I'm only speaking from experience, and mine are just mine. It's just what happened in my situations. But I normally find that by the time people come in to see the pastor, they're coming in with one of three motives. They're coming in to really get help. And it can be both of them. Sometimes they're coming in to prove their point. In other words, somebody said, I'm going to leave you if you don't come. And they, and so that person's coming in to try to keep what they got. And then there's that person I just mentioned who comes in and try to prove his point. He don't want help. He just wants you to get on his side and tell him he's right and tell them he's right and they're wrong. So even in those three scenarios, I find that most of the time I can control the situation because I let them dictate the tone of the counseling session. I hate to say this to us men, but it's usually the man who's the angry one. He's usually the angry one. He's usually the one who is almost like you can't communicate with him. He won't listen to nobody, you know. Okay. The woman is usually the one that has a whole list of complaints. She's just got a whole list of complaints, you know. He's just stinking mad. And so here they are. I can usually work with those situations, but you kind of have to spend some time doing what I call prepping them. In other words, breaking down the attitudes between the two of them. I have even at times said, look, the way you're both feeling right now, let's do this. Let's just do two sessions. One, I want to just meet with him. One, I want to meet with her by themselves. Let me hear what you both have to say. Because every time they would try to communicate, the other one would attack them. You know, in other words, everybody's always got a reason why whatever accusation this one makes, they had a good reason for it. It's your fault that I did it. You know, so nobody's guilty of anything, but they all hate each other or something. That's not possible. So I would maybe break them up and spend time individually with them. And then one of the first things that's going to come up is they're going to come in and they're both going to give you the impression, because people believe this because they want to believe it about themselves. They believe they're right. And so they want to tell you why it'll be your job when you meet with the other one to fix the problem. The problem's not here in this room today. The problem, you're going to get the problem next time. And whoever goes first will do that. And then that person will convince you why that person lied to you and why they're really the problem. And you got to be smart enough to know. Proverbs says, he who speaks first sounds right until the other comes and, corrects or sets the record straight, is what it says. And so that is a real important thing of wisdom right there, is to know this, that to people, it's human nature. And so you listen to them. Don't sit there and call them a liar. When you just got one person, listen to them, take notes and everything, then listen to the other person. And you'll see a lot of similarities. A lot of times people are accusing each other of doing the same thing. And the truth is that they're both right, probably. They're both are treating each other just the same way. And so they need to work through something. You're going to deal with the male-female differences. You're going to deal with attitudes that come through upbringing and expectations, and that come through, well, my daddy did this, and, my daddy never did this, and she says her daddy did, and y'all know what I'm saying? You're going to just have to work through these things with them to get them to a point to where you can finally say to them, and I always say this to them when they're in the individual settings, just him or just her, I say, well, I hear what you're saying, but today, she's not here. This ain't about her today. So you don't need to tell me all the bad things about her. This is me and you today, buddy. And, what we need to talk about is you. And boy, they'll sit there and they'll get uncomfortable because they didn't come to talk about them. They come to tell all the bad news about the other one. And so sometimes you can get them to talking, but by themselves, but you might have to use some leading questions. And leading questions are things like this. I'll just come up with some here. In your relationship with your wife lately, do you feel like you've been doing your part around the house? That always gets a guy. And they'll, I work 40 hours a week. No, I said around the house. Well, yeah, I mow the grass. I mean, are you help? Does she work full time? Oh, yeah, she works full time. Oh, then what are you doing around the house? It's like we men don't seem to comprehend that it won't kill us to sweep a floor. It got quiet in here, didn't it? But I mean, and then you're going to deal with some things. They're going to start feeling like, well, are you picking on me? All this kind of stuff. And the fact is there's nothing unusual about most counseling sessions. Most of them are just like the last one that just came in and left. People struggle with a lot of the same things because it's mindsets, it's tradition, it's the flesh, it's sin, money, communication is in the top 3, money's in the top 3, sex is in the top 3. Believe it or not, 2 people that are opposites and are created by God to procreate can do that and achieve it, but have a lot of problems around it sometimes. And that's something, if you're not comfortable talking about it, and many times pretty openly in a counseling session, you need to reconsider marital counseling because there's a lot of issues around that. And so, anyway. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And then you get out of them what they're angry about. I just hate this church. And you're like, so you hate the building? And they're like, no, I just hate that they just do offerings too early or something. You get them to repeat that exactly what they're angry about.
Uh-huh.
And then you can ask them, what it was, I think it was, what can you do about it? Because they get mad at someone else and they like to point fingers.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah, what I see you saying is you're turning the blame around that they brought in to try to put it on somebody else, and you're putting it back in their lap, which makes them take responsibility for solutions, which is great. That is a counseling technique. That's very good. That actually, what you're describing falls into the category of confrontational counseling, and it's very good. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so angry.
Yeah.
That reminds me of something that taught me. I haven't had to use it. I guess I never really thought to use it.
But that's really good. That's a really good technique. Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing about when you get to really doing a lot of counseling, don't take anything personal. When I was young and I really didn't know how to counsel, and somebody would come in and just start attacking me. And they will do that, especially in marital counseling. If one of the other of them, all of a sudden their sins start coming to the forefront, or their bad attitudes, all of a sudden, and to try to hide it or cover it up, they'll try to change the subject that their partner's talking about, their spouse, or they'll attack the counselor. Boy, I've had them attack me, well, the way this is going, I don't know if you're even qualified to be counseling us. And when I was young, man, I'd get so mad. And now I could care less. I say, no, I'm probably not, because y'all are a mess. I'll say stuff like that, they'll go. But when I was young, I'd get mad at them, man. I'd turn it into a, argument with them. I'd say, well, how dare you come in here, I remember one situation. There was a couple came to me for counseling, and they were sent by the church secretary of the Methodist church in town. And she knew I counseled a lot, and I had a degree in counseling. And so she sends this couple over, and they were probably 5 years older than me, roughly. And they were having marital problems, and there was nothing unusual about their problems, and it was just a typical, you need to work through these things type of marriage issues. And she did that, just like that. Well, she says, what makes you think you're qualified to be counseling us anyway? I said, hold on a minute. I said, first place, I said, I can show you I have a degree in counseling. I can tell you that I'm an ordained minister. I said, I can tell you all these things that you're trying to dig for. But I said, in reality, you're not interested in who I am or what I can do. You don't want to go where it hurts. And she looked at me like this, and I said, furthermore, you ought to be grateful for and appreciate this time with me. But I said, because a counselor with my type of education would be charging you somewhere between $60 and $120 an hour, and you're sitting here in my chair for free. I said, my church pays my salary. You don't even go to this church, and you're here getting free counseling. We do this as a gift to our community. And all of a sudden, the husband, he goes, oh, to her, you need to sit up and be quiet. You need to sit up and be quiet, And she kind of backs up, like this and everything. And I said, look, I think we've all had enough for this session. I said, I don't even know if you guys want to come back. I said, I'll leave that in your court. I am willing to go forward in this with you if you want to. But I said, but for today, I think we need to pray and just go our ways. So they leave. And the Methodist secretary writes me a letter, sends me a check for $200. And she says, whoever the man was, she said, he told me what happened. She said, I am so sorry. And she apologized. And so, I didn't want their money because I was paid good. And I didn't say that. I said it because she made me mad. That's why I said it. I've just confessed. But so anyway, she says, I hope you won't give up on them. Please pray for them. I don't know if they're going to come back or not. Well, next week they call and want to come back. The woman comes in apologizing up and down, apologizing sideways. I mean, she was just so sorry. And I still had the check. I didn't cash her nothing. And I said, she says, I appreciate you being willing to see us again. I said, well, there is one condition on this meeting.